Okay, good morning, everybody. This is a video that Miss Lu and Miss Shami, we've decided to record so as to help you analyze further the story The Werewolf by Angela Carter. We're going to go through the questions that we ask you to work on, and we're going to end the presentation with the invitation to work on this week's activities. Ms. Shami?
Okay. Hi everyone. How are you? I hope you're fine. I'm going to go through the first question, and then Lou will continue with the second one. The first question said, in terms of the setting, time, and place of the story, what is the different from the classical story? Make a comparison. So in here, we want you to specify the setting that is different, very different from the classical story, The Little Red Riding Hood, in terms of, for example, the setting here, it creates a frightening tone, and there is an emphasis on the winter and not the summer. It's very cold, snowy, and instead in the classical story, the setting there is like a beautiful forest full of flowers and birds and color. And in here, there is no much interaction in this story from Angela Carter. So there is a lot of difference in terms of that. Nobody is portrayed as happy in this story, and they do what they have to do. So it's very different, okay? So that is more or less what we want you to explain. And you can take some phrases from this story, like, for example, in the first part, it says, in a northern country that has a cold weather. So that gives you the idea that it's very cold and is in the northern part, okay? Number two.
Okay, number two. In terms of the main events in the story, what's different from the classical story? So here, remember that we are comparing with the classical story, which is called The Little Red Riding Hood, which is quite different because here, if you remember this story, we all know this story. We have a little girl who is innocent, happy. She always does what she's told. I remember that her mother asked her to respect and follow the path towards her grandmother's house, and she actually warns her, be careful with the wolf, be careful with talking to strangers. So she does everything she's told. She respects the rules, and when she finally encounters the wolf, she has this problem. She doesn't know what to do. She gets desperate, and she desperately calls for help, which is quite different from this story by Angela Carter. We see a woman, well, not a woman, we see a girl who is independent, who is fearless, who is a problem solver person, because she actually manages the situation. She gets to kill the wolf by her own means, and
she's not scared, right?
Not scared,
she's
right?
Not scared.
She's fearless. So the attitudes, the way she handles the situation, it's very different.
Okay. In the third, it says the girl who is called the Little Red Riding Hood in the classical story. How is she called now? Characterize her in terms of her personality, attitudes, and physical description. Well, Miss Lu has identified and characterized her as independent, fearless, not scared. So how is she called now? She's called a girl, just a girl, and it's not a personalized name like the Little Red Riding Hood as in the classical story. So there is a little difference here, because in this name, the girl, it means like a gender, a group, a whole group called a girl, just a girl, without name, right? So this is what we want. And in terms of personality, well, she's brave, her attitudes are very different from the classical story. And physically, for example, she's not wearing red clothes, yes, and in here she's wearing a sheepskin, something like that. So it's very different from that.
She's even equipped with knives, with hunting knives.
Of course, yes.
Not a basket full of food for her grandmother.
Yeah, good. Okay, the next one.
Okay, number 5.
4.
Number 4, sorry. After analyzing the girl in this new version of the story, in your own words, is there any empowering version of the girl? In what aspects? This is related to the questions that we asked you before, but maybe more taking into account your opinion. Of course, we cannot deny the fact that this has been a remaking of the story, changing the position of this girl. Here, she's a protagonist. She makes decisions, she solves problems, so we can see an empowering version of what this girl represents. But maybe here we ask you to what you think, what was your impression in this story, and maybe you can compare it with other classical stories. Think about Cinderella, think about the Sleeping Beauty. All of these girls follow the same pattern, the same kind of girl who is submissive, who is not independent. So we want you to give your opinion about this story and how, maybe giving examples, how you think this empowering version is portrayed, is characterized, is reflected on the story.
Okay, perfect. And number 5, the end of the story, she actually manages to get rid of the wolf without any help. What type of woman is that part making reference to? Which was the attitude of the girl in the traditional story? So in here we want you to see, well, the end, what is the difference from the classical story? So what type of woman is this part making reference to? Well, actually, in here, in the traditional story, she asks for help, she screams, she gets the woodcutter to help her. So that is the end, totally different from this story from Angela Carter. She doesn't say anything. In here, she just killed the wolf and that's it. And she gets to her grandmother's house without any problem, without saying anything, without screaming. So there is a difference, a huge difference.
Yes.
So in here, we want you to explain that, and then we will make reference to this end of the story that you can recreate at the end, one of the activities you can make. So think of this part, what is different, and then what you can change, okay? And then 6.
Great, Miss Rami. And the last one, at the end of the story, the last sentence reads as follows: she's prospered. What do you think the expression is making reference to? If we think for a moment about this a bunch of classical stories that we've always read, the typical last expression, the typical last sentence is they live happily ever after, they got married, they had kids, and they were happy. So it's like the only thing that matters is that they were in love and they were, of course, happiness is important, but it's like the person or the objectives that a woman has is just getting married, having a partner. Here, the end of the story says she prospered. Prospered is a very strong verb because it's talking about moving on in life, making progress. Maybe like when you study, you get graduate, you prosper. When you get a job, you prosper. So it has to do with a broader version of, we would say, objectives, goals in life for a woman. So we want you to explain here, what do you think this idea makes reference to? Because if we think she finally gets the grandmother's house, so she starts, we assume that she starts living on her own. So we want you to explain what this, with this short expression, this verb entails. What's the meaning of this idea?
Okay, thank you, Ms. Lu. So here we had all the questions we went through, and now we have an assignment for you for next week, for this week, May the 11th until the 19th, more or less. We'll give you 1 week to think of, to reread the story and make the questions. And you have 2 options to write. It doesn't have to be like long. What we want is that you can choose A or B. In A, you can create a different ending, totally different, with your ideas, with your opinion. What we want to see your creativity here. And on option B, you can create different main events. So go through all the events, and you can make like a bullets with the main idea, the main events, and create a different story. Okay, but don't go in detail with a lot of description, but just main events, what happened, when, and how was the setting, and that's it.
Right.
Okay, Lou, anything else you would like to say?
Right, like an example, I'm thinking right now, for example, instead of going through the forest, she takes another path, or she takes, she goes by car. I don't know. What comes to your mind? We want to see creativity. Nothing is wrong here. It's just what you create, okay? And it could be an empowering version or more related to the classical story as you want. This is your time to create. So I hope this video might have been helpful for you, and we're here to help you, and we really appreciate the work you've been doing so far. So thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much for your attention, and well, see you soon.
See you soon. Bye bye.
Bye bye.